What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Truth Addiction, channel that deals with addiction in all its glorious forms. I just want to put this out there that anything said on this channel does not reflect or does not express the views of any 12-step program. When I started the channel, one of the ideas I had was to interview other recovering addicts. And when I first started thinking about doing this, Joe was the first person I wanted to ask to interview first. So you will be the first interview on this channel, sir. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm Joe. I'm a recovering addict. I'm in the Fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous, and got about 4 years clean.
And I'm an addict named Brian, aka Wawa Brian. So what we're going to do here is, the idea is I got some questions here I want to go over with Joe, and we'll see where it goes. All right. So here goes my first question to you. So where were you born, and where'd you grow up, and what was your childhood like?
So I was born at Lower Bucks Hospital right here in Bristol Township.
Okay.
I grew up pretty poor, like we were on Section 8, and I remember paper food stamps, right? I remember my brother like buying cigarettes from the local store, like with food stamps, like my mom sending her in there because she was mostly like, she was on drugs, man. Xanax, crack was big then. None of that, I knew what was going on though, right? I didn't know any of that shit was going on.
Yeah.
They did a good job of hiding it. Maybe I was just naive being young,
Yeah.
But an older sister and an older brother, much older, right? From another, with a different dude. So they have a different dad than I had. Never knew my dad. And then, it was pretty cut short pretty early because my mom died when I was only 5. So I never knew my real dad. He died previous to that, and she died when I was 5.
Okay.
So then it was just passed along from grandma, stepped up to take care of us, all 3 of us, kids, just orphans, right?
Yeah.
Because their dad passed away too from some other
So you
shit.
were raised by your grandmother?
Yeah, grandma and 2 aunts.
Okay. Yeah, that's a rough piece. My mom was an addict herself. So I mean, and my dad, I think I met my dad like 5 times in my life. Yeah, he tried to come in and out, but it just wasn't working out. So what high school did you go to, and were you a good student? Did you graduate?
I went to Truman, man, again, in the same neighborhood, right, where I grew up in. We moved a lot, so it was like different elementary schools, right? I lived in Bristol Borough at one point.
Right.
Many different schools because, like, I'm not really sure why, looking back. We just could only rent. I guess we were shitty fucking renters, you know what I mean? We just lived someplace, fucked it up. My
Right.
older brother going to punch holes in the walls, whatever the case is, right? So, I mean, I was smart, right? I was in, like, gifted classes from the 5th grade on, right?
Yeah.
That's, like, when they start that shit. And I was always told, like, he's bright. You know how people talk, but, like, you're not there and shit?
Right.
He's bright. He just doesn't fucking apply himself, I've been told that forever, right? Pretty good student, in the beginning, right? So I found out what my niche was. English. Definitely not fucking math.
Right.
I'm a writer.
I sucked at math, dude. I sucked at math. My mom had Section 8. So, she would just get bored of the house we were in. We would freaking move every 2 years. It was insane.
Yeah,
So did you graduate?
I did not graduate.
What grade did you go to?
I went all the way to 12th grade.
Damn.
Got put in a placement, didn't want to go to school, right? And then they were like, I've been in a couple placements at this point, but
Right.
they were like, all right, you don't want to show up anymore? It's like November. Like,
Yeah.
we're withdrawing you. They withdrew me from high school.
Okay. Yeah,
So-
I didn't finish either, but I dropped out in the fucking 9th grade, dude. I cut class one day and I never went back. But my mom didn't care. She was like high at all the times. It didn't really matter.
I only had to go till 11 o'clock. Like, I couldn't even manage that shit. My addiction was already too fucking far. Getting high was way more important at that time already.
Right.
So I went to a placement, and if you took your GED test and you scored over a certain amount, you get a diploma from their school. So I actually got a GED, a diploma from that school, and then my high school honored a diploma from them. So I actually got 2 fucking diplomas.
Okay.
and a GED for some
Yeah,
weird ass
I
reason.
ended up going back and get a GED when I was like 28 years old. So, how old were you when you first started using?
Oh shit, 11, man. I remember when it was yesterday.
So, do you think that was a peer pressure thing? Do you think that was a peer pressure thing why you did that? Who you were running with? Or was it?
I mean, it was my older cousin came over, and we were more like brothers than cousins, right? Because we just like, I don't know, we just bonded better than, his dad was like my dad,
Right, right.
whatever. So we just grew up very, very close. He came over one night, and he had already been smoking weed and shit. And he was like, yo, I got this weed, you want some? And it wasn't like, yo, you have to do this or not. And I was
Right.
like, fuck it. You know what I mean? He's doing it. He's cool. I respect him. Maybe it was like a form of admiration. Like, I want to do what they're doing. Because I already knew what was going on with the older people in my family. It was like cool to do drugs.
Yeah, exactly. Me too.
You know?
So I got this thing where, dude, like I don't. I think my first use of drugs was against my will. Like before I even did it, I knew it wasn't good. I hated drugs because drugs destroyed everything around me before when I was a kid, with my family and stuff. So for me, it was like there was a peer pressure thing involved. So what I wanted to ask you was because, so we sit here today, we know we have a disease of addiction, right? So looking back at it now, can you see any signs of having the disease of addiction before you started using drugs?
Way before Brian. Like, I remember like stealing these other kids' bikes, like breaking into the shed of
Yeah.
my neighbor's house, right? And then like taking the whole door apart to get to these fucking bikes. You know how they got shed doors in there locked up. Taking the fucking hinges off, getting them in there, taking all the shit that was in there and putting them all back and getting caught. You know what I mean? And like threatened and shit. And then the neighbors like picked up and rolled or whatever. And they really got in trouble for it. But like shit like that, right? Like I was focused on a fucking idea and I wouldn't stop until I got it.
Right.
Like that kind of compulsion and obsession of like stupid shit, not so much like, girls, gambling or whatever. That all came later. It was more like the thievery and wanting to get what I had, stealing from stores, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember wanting this mechanical pencil. Like all the other kids had these fucking cool mechanical pencils and shit, and going into the Giant and just stealing it, or like that stupid fucking Listerine strips.
Yeah, yeah, I remember those. Well, they
Like,
still have them, I think.
yeah, but the kids would have them, but I didn't have it. Just shit that I could never get. I remember just going and wanting it and just stealing it
Right.
and being obsessed and consumed with it, and like attention, people's
Yeah.
attention, whether it was negative,
Negative
or
or
positive.
positive, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, for one of my things was, having like all different kinds of masks in my pocket that I could just whip out so I could be whoever I needed to be for whoever I was around. So take us back to your active addiction and break down the progression real quick from first use to where you're like, shit, this is devastatingly bad at this point.
that's the fucked up part because it was like really fun and manageable for a long time. I guess it wasn't very manageable from the get go, because I didn't have a lot of money when I was young and I
Right.
wanted to get high. So I worked, I had jobs, like little, I had a job at an early age to like pay for my school clothes and shit,
Okay.
and I was right around the time like I started using a little pizza place, clean up, whatever. So then basically all my money would just go to drugs.
Right.
Immediately. There was no like waiting. Like I'm not even gonna try to kid myself and say that. No, you get paid $100 a week. You're buying a half ounce of weed. That is gonna last you all the whole time. You don't need drinks. You're riding your bike everywhere. You don't need gas. It was easy then, right? But yeah, man. Like once I got into like hard shit, like I remember one time I fell off my bike and I hurt my elbow and they gave me like perk fives.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, this is cool. But like I off them to get some other shit, get weed or beer or something to like, whatever. Just it wasn't my shit. But later on in life I found out like searching those things and wet and all the like the hard drugs that make you fucking really forget about what the fuck's going on. Really
Right.
shut off your feelings. But there was this distinct time, I can't tell you where, when, or how it happened, but where I crossed this threshold of the door where like I use drugs to shut off the feelings, right?
Yeah.
To not
For
like
sure.
I needed drugs to motivate me to do things.
Yeah.
It was probably around
I
that
needed
time.
motivation just to take a shower.
Yeah.
I had to use before I could even take a shower, dude, or even eat food. I mean, that's how bad it got. It was like life wasn't enjoyable unless there was a drug in me. I didn't even think you could even live life without drugs at one point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I believed. So you basically, same thing as me and every other recovering addict that comes in and gets clean. You basically, you get involved with drugs, you fuck your whole shit up, and then eventually you come to that point where you're like, all right, I need to do something about this, right? So take me back to the day before your last drug use.
I spent the whole check again because I would get paid on Fridays, right? And Walmart would cash your check like super early. They open at like 7, I think.
Right.
So I picked up my check from the week prior's work, went there, cashed it, hit up my person, right? And spent the whole thing, paid what I owed and all my new shit. Went home, tried to give her some, because, we were like partners a little bit, right?
This is your wife?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she like took a swing at me. And her friend was on the porch. I thought that was fucking weird because her friend like is like a citizen. She has a job, and like, why is she at my house at 8 o'clock in the morning? She told me she was leaving, man, packing the kids up, and she took the drugs I tried to give her and threw them. So I went and my mangy ass and picked them up, and I was gone. It didn't even matter. It was like, this sucks, but like now I can use without being fucked with. For real.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, but what am I gonna do? Where's it gonna take me? My whole life is destroyed.
It's crazy how how you will just justify fucking nonsense and just like nothing else matters but using that right there. Oh well, I can use in peace now. Shit, it's so. I remember this dude was telling me. He said, "Man, I remember one time my girlfriend gave me this ultimatum. She found a bunch of crack in my drawer. She was like, it's either me or the crack.' He was like, you're gonna have to go." He was like, you're gonna have to go.